Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the next update for my Panda palette. Obviously I'm working on the Modern Renaissance palette this year, and if you haven't seen my other videos, please make sure to check them out before you jump into this one. But you can see like my introduction and where I was when I started, as well as obviously my previous month's updates. But I'm really excited with the progress that I have this month, so without any further ado, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. I always forget to mention this in my Panda palette videos, but Panda palette was created by Amber F eons ago. She still does them and I love watching her videos, but she was the creator of Panda palette. I don't know how long it's been going, but I've been doing Panda palette I think since 2018. I think there was one year when I didn't do it, so I think this should be my fourth Panda palette that I've ever done. Sounds right. Yeah, I think that is. I think I started my Mastila palette. I can't remember what it's called. It was the one that was really popular back in the day. I started with that one. Then I had a Makeup Revolution palette. Then last year I did my Urban Decay Naked Basics palette, and then this year I'm doing my Modern Renaissance palette. So I have done 4 palettes, and this is my 4th palette, and I'm really enjoying this palette. It's a really good one for every day, and I can use several shades of this every single day, which is really good. Today I'm wearing a bit more of a colorful look, as you can see, so I'm not using too many shades from here, but I'm using 2 still, so even in colorful looks you can incorporate these eyeshadows. But with all that being said, I'm gonna put up the picture of where I was with my palette last month. Last month I had pan on 9 shades and I have 1 shade finished, I believe. You will see it better there. And yeah, I already finished my first shade last month, which was really exciting. And if you look at the palette, I had pretty good progress on some of the other shades, but this is where I am with my palette today. So you can see the overview right here, but let's go through each shade in order. So the first shade in the palette is Tempera, and as you can see I was actually able to finish the shade in the past month. So I finished my 2nd shade, which is very exciting. In the past month I used it an additional 24 times to finish it, and in total it took me 69 uses to finish that shade. But I obviously already had pan on when I introduced this palette, but it is now done, which means that I actually have 2 empty pans in this palette, which is very exciting. So I'm happy about that. I don't think I'm going to finish anything else in the next month, but it's nice to have some momentum going with this palette and already have 2 shades finished. Next up we have the shade Golden Ochre, which is probably one of my favorite shades in this palette. When I had this in my Panda's eyeshadows, I think, or in one of my projects to pan on, and I didn't really care for it too much then, but using it in combination with the rest of this palette as well as other shades, I fall in love with this shade because it's something that I can put down in my crease very roughly, and it just creates a really lovely blend because it is slightly, it's maybe like 1 or 2 shades deeper than my skin tone, probably 2 shades deeper than my skin tone, but it's way lighter than a lot of other crease colors that I use, for example raw sienna and burnt orange. But it just helps create that gradients and make those shades blend out so nicely. So I love this shade and I do use it quite regularly, and in the last month I used it 9 times for a total of 25, which is pretty good. And I do think this is probably going to be the next shade that is finished, probably this one or Primavera depending. But yeah, I love this shade and I have no worries at all about finishing it. It's probably going to be finished, I'm guessing, in like 2 or 3 months. Vermeer was already finished last month, so I'm going to jump over that, and the next shade is Bone Fresco. This is a shade that I wanted to focus on in the past month because it is a very cool toned kind of mauvey or purpley shade. I like it, but it's not my absolute favorite undertone. It can look very bruisey on me if I don't pair it with the right things, but I did use it 8 additional times in the past month, which is pretty good because it's the highest I've ever used it in any month. And I do think I've expanded the pan a little bit, which is good, and in total I have now used this 19 times. Next to that we have the shade Antique Bronze, which I have not used at all. I used it once in this project so far, so not very good. I'm just focusing on other things. I think this is going to be an easy one to incorporate eventually, but I just, like I said, focusing on other things at the moment, and I've been focusing a lot on the kind of pinky tones in this palette, or I've been focusing on like the orangey tones, so either or, and this one is just one that I haven't focused too much on. Next to that we have Love Letter, which I haven't used either because I've been focusing on the other kind of fuchsia shade in this palette, which I'm going to get to when I get to the 2nd row. But Love Letter, like I said, I haven't used at all in the past month, but I have used it 4 times in total in this project. Then the last shade on the top row we have Cypress Umber, which is deep brown right here. This one I have used 4 times in the past month for a total of 14. I need to pick up my uses on this. It's a shade that I can easily incorporate into looks, but I just forget, and I haven't really been going for those really smoky looks recently. So yeah, I need to step up my usage game on this. I think because it can work both as an eyeliner or as a outer corner shade. I am working on quite a few eyeshadows that I'm using as eyeliner at the moment, and I'm also panning a liquid eyeliner, so I think it's just going to mainly be used as an outer corner shade, but I just need to remember to use this because it is a very pigmented shade and I still have quite a lot left on it, and I know that if I have any chance of finishing this year, I need to start using it soon. So that is the next shade. So moving on to the second row of the palette, we have the shade Raw Sienna, which is a beautiful shade, but I haven't used it in the past month because I've been focusing on a different shade that's very similar, so I haven't used it like I said, but I have 4 uses on it in total in this project. Next to that we have the shade that I have been working on though, and that is the shade Burnt Orange. And as you can see, I was able to hit pan on this eyeshadow, which is really exciting. It took me 26 uses in total to hit pan. I did use it a total of 12 times in the past month for a total of 30, so I've used it 4 times since I hit pan on it, and I'm very excited to have pan on this now because it was one of my goals for the past month. Next to that we have the shade Primavera, which is a beautiful kind of gold shade. It's the only kind of pure shimmer shade that I have left in this palette, and I've used it twice in the past month, not too much, but I am not worried about this because I know I'm going to focus a lot on this as an inner corner highlight, maybe even as a face highlighter in summer when I get a bit more of a tan. So I'm not worried about this one, but I'm using it every now and then when I want to, and I have a total of 5 uses on this so far. Next up we have the shade Red Ochre, which is one of the only few shades I have left that I don't have pan. It's this one and Love Letter that I don't have pan on. Red Ochre I used an additional 4 times in the past month for a total of 13 uses. I don't really have a dip or anything in it. I mean, you can see a little bit of juice in it, but no real massive dip or anything. But I do really love this shade. It's a bit more, I mean, it's called Red Ochre and it looks a bit more red in the pan, but honestly this is just a warm kind of deep brown, so it's a very easy shade to incorporate. I just haven't been focusing on it too much because again I've been focusing on a different shade, which right now has been the shade Venetian Red, which is the next shade in the palette. I've been focusing on this a lot because it's one that I want to try to finish as soon as possible, because I also have Love Letter, which is very similar. They're not exactly the same, but they are very similar, so I'm focusing on Venetian Red at the moment to try to get as much use out of this one as possible. And in the past month I used it an additional 6 times for a total of 19 uses, and I did hit pan on this past month, but I think I have expanded the pan pretty decently, but you were able to tell in the pictures. But yeah, I love the tone of this shade, but it's not the best performing anymore. It might just be because it's old, but I found that with this I need to put it on a tacky base, otherwise it just blends away to nothing, and it can also be quite patchy unless I, like I said, put it on a tacky base. So that's how I found it. If I use this shade, it's the first one that I put down before moving on to everything else. So yeah, I like this shade, but it is very cumbery now, which is also why I'm expanding the pan quite quickly, but I don't mind because I do want it gone as soon as possible. Then we have 2 more shades in the palette. The next one is Warm Taupe, which as you can see is another shade that I hit pan on. This one I used an additional 23 times in the past month, and I use this mainly as an eyebrow shade. I'm actually wearing this today a little bit on my outer corner as well as like slightly into my crease, yeah, I use it mainly as an eyebrow shade. I am also wearing it as an eyebrow shade on like the outer 2/3 of my brows. I did hit pan after 36 uses, and I have now used it 56 times, so yeah, I'm definitely expanding the pan, but since I'm using an eyeliner brush or like a brow brush for it, it's quite high around the pan still, so I'm not going to be able to expand the pan too quickly with this one, but at least I do have pan now, and it is moving, so that's really nice. Then the last shade in the palette is Realgar, which I only used once in the past month for a total of 6 uses. Yeah, not too much, but I think I'm going to focus more on this in the summer and autumn months, so again I'm not too worried about it. So now when I've talked through my palette, you can see this is what it looks like now. I'm really happy with all the progress that I'm making and all of the pans in here now. I only have 2 eyeshadows left without pan. So with that said, I'm going to move into talking about my focus shades for the next month. Although I'm getting a bit tired of it, I'm going to continue trying to focus on Venetian Red. I'm not going to have it as much as a focus shade because this month I was focused, like I said, a lot on Bon Fresco and Venetian Red. I think I'm going to move away from Bon Fresco a little bit because I'm getting tired of those like really cool tone mauve looks, because like I said, it can look almost like Brucey on me, and I want to wear more bright spring colors now in April, because April is like Easter time. I want like pastels, things like that, so I'm not going to focus on that one too much, but I'm going to try to reach for Venetian Red a few more times. Even if I just use it 5 times, that's going to be fine. The main focus shade for next month is going to be Red Ochre. I'm going to try to hit pan on this eyeshadow in the next month. I'm not sure if I will be able to do it, but I'm going to try to. And if not, I want to get a really big dip in this eyeshadow. So that's going to be my main goal. Otherwise, I'm just going to play around with it and focus on like the shades that I've been already playing with. I'm going to continue using Golden Ochre, Burnt Orange, like those two I love. And I'm going to try to expand the pan on both of those. Yeah, I think that's going to be my main goal. I'm just going to continue using the palette as it is. Actually, I'm also going to try to focus on Cypress Ombre more, like I already said, because I do want to use this more than I have been. So yeah, that's going to be my main goals. But since I already have pan on majority of this palette, I can't really put in many goals to hit pan, and I don't think I'm going to be able to like hit side pan or anything. And I don't really want to hit side pan because I found that if I hit side pan, the eyeshadows crumble quite easily, and I've heard that the Modern Renaissance doesn't repress the best. So I'm going to try to wear the eyeshadows kind of evenly in the middle until I get to the edges, and then obviously wear those away and use them up when I get to that. But yeah, I'm gonna just continue expanding the pans that I already have and focus on the eyeshadows I mentioned. So Venetian Red, Cypress Ombre and Red Ochre as my main focus. So a little more deeper shades in this palette, because I also know that I'm gonna use like this kind of area right here a lot anyway. So yeah, that is gonna be it. And that is my Panda palette update. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're doing a Panda palette, let me know how you're doing down below, and otherwise I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys!